My name is Natalie Brooks, and on my 30th birthday my parents told me something I never thought I would hear. You're no longer our child. Happened in the middle of my birthday dinner. There was a cake on the table, 3 candles still burning, and a birthday card sitting beside my plate. Everything looked normal until my father pushed a brown envelope toward me. "Open it," he said. I looked at my mother. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I slowly opened the envelope and pulled out several legal documents. At first I didn't understand what I was looking at, then I saw the words. My name had been removed from my parents' will completely. I looked at my father. "What is this?" He leaned back in his chair. "It means exactly what it says." My hand started shaking. "You changed your will?" "Yes." "Because of what?" My mother finally looked at me. "Because you're no longer part of this family." I stared at her. "What did I do?" My father didn't answer immediately. Then he said something that hurt more than the document itself. "You've made your choices, now live with them." I pushed the papers back across the table. "I don't understand." "You don't need to," my mother said quietly. Then my father looked directly at me. "You're no longer our child." The room went completely silent. I looked at the birthday cake, 30 candles, 30 years of birthdays, Christmas mornings, family vacations, graduations. Every memory suddenly felt like it had been erased in one sentence. I stood up. "Fine." My mother looked surprised. I picked up my purse. "If that's really what you want, I'm not going to beg you to love me." I walked out. I expected to feel angry. Instead, I felt empty. For the next 2 weeks, I didn't contact them. I didn't call. I didn't send messages. I didn't ask relatives what was happening. I went back to work and tried to continue my normal life, but I couldn't stop thinking about that envelope. There had to be a reason. My parents had never been affectionate people, but they had always been predictable. They didn't suddenly change their will on my birthday without something happening. Then one afternoon I received a message from an unknown number. It said, "Please don't ask your parents about the old house." I stared at the screen. I typed back, "Who is this?" Their answer came almost immediately. "Name is Daniel Mercer. Your father knows me." Stomach tightened. I called the number. Daniel answered. "I'm sorry for contacting you like this." "Who are you?" "I was your grandfather's attorney." I froze. "My grandfather died 8 years ago." "I know. Then why are you contacting me now?" There was a long pause. "Because I believe your parents lied to you." Heart started beating faster. "About what?" "About your inheritance." I sat down. "What inheritance?" "Daniel told me that my grandfather had left behind a small property outside the city. It wasn't worth millions, but it was valuable. And according to the original documents, it had been intended for me, not my parents. Me, I couldn't understand. "Why didn't I know about this?" Daniel sighed. "Because your father asked me to keep the matter private." I felt cold. "Why? That's what you need to find out." Next day I met Daniel at his office. He placed an old folder on the table. Inside were documents dated almost 10 years earlier. My grandfather had written a separate letter. The letter stated that he wanted me to inherit the property when I turned 30, not when I turned 18, not when my parents decided. 30, my birthday, the exact birthday when my parents had removed me from their will. I looked at Daniel. "Did my parents know about this?" "Yes. Long, since your grandfather died." I couldn't speak. Daniel continued. "There was one condition attached to the inheritance." "What condition?" "You had to personally claim the property after turning 30. If I didn't, it would eventually pass into a family trust." I stared at the papers. "My parents never told me." "No." "Why?" Daniel looked uncomfortable. "That part is complicated." Opened another folder. Inside was a property transfer document. My father had attempted to sell the property 3 years earlier, but the sale had been rejected. Because he wasn't the legal owner, my grandfather had protected it. The property was still mine. I felt a strange mixture of anger and relief. Then I noticed another document. "What is this?" Daniel hesitated. "That is the document your father signed." I read it carefully. My father had acknowledged that the property belonged to me, but underneath it was a handwritten note. "Not tell Natalie until necessary." I looked up. "Necessary?" Daniel nodded. "Your grandfather had suspected that your parents would try to control the inheritance." I couldn't believe it. "Grandfather knew?" "Yes." Reached into the folder again. "There is something else." Handed me a sealed envelope. My name was written on the front. The handwriting was unmistakable. My grandfather. I opened it carefully. The letter was short. He wrote that he loved me. He said he had always believed I was the strongest person in the family. Then he wrote something that made me cry. "Never allow anyone to make you believe that money determines your value." I put the letter down. For the first time since my birthday I cried, not because of the money. Because my grandfather had known exactly what might happen, and he had prepared for it. But I still didn't understand why my parents had gone as far as removing me from their will. Daniel finally explained. My parents had recently discovered that I had been asking questions about our family's finances. They believed I had found out about the property. They thought I was preparing to claim it, so they decided to disown me first. They wanted me to feel guilty. They wanted me to come back and apologize. They expected me to beg them to restore my place in the family. Instead, I had walked away. And that ruined their plan. I left Daniel's office with the property documents and my grandfather's letter. I didn't contact my parents. 3 days later, my mother called. I almost didn't answer. "Hello, Natalie." Her voice sounded different, less confident. "What do you want? Can we, what?" There was silence. Then she said, "Your father made a mistake." I almost laughed. "A mistake?" "Yes, you told me I wasn't your child anymore." "I know. You removed me from the will." "I know. So what changed?" My mother started crying. "Come home." I didn't answer. Then she said something I never expected. "Your father knows you found out." Heart stopped. "Found out what?" "That your grandfather left everything to you." I closed my eyes. "So they knew I knew." My mother continued. "We were trying to protect the family." "No," I said. "You were trying to control me." She didn't respond. I hung up. That evening my father came to my apartment. I opened the door but didn't invite him inside. He looked older than I remembered. "I want to explain." "You had 30 years to explain." Look down. "Grandfather didn't trust us. Now I understand why." My father sighed. "He thought you were too independent." He was right. He believed we'd use the property for ourselves. "You did." Looked at me. "We were going to sell it." "I know, we needed the money." I stared at him. "You had years to tell me." "I was afraid you'd take it. It was never yours." He had no answer. Then he said, "Can we fix this?" I looked at the man who had raised me. Part of me wanted to say yes, part of me wanted to forgive him immediately. But another part remembered the birthday dinner. "You're no longer our child." Those words hadn't disappeared. I finally said, "You don't get to destroy a relationship and then decide when it's repaired." Father nodded slowly. "I understand." He turned around. Before he left, I said, "Dad." He stopped. "I never wanted your money." Looked back. I wanted my parents. His eyes filled with tears. He left without saying anything. Months passed. I claimed my grandfather's property. I didn't sell it. I renovated it. I turned it into a small creative studio and eventually started a business there. The property became successful, but I never forgot why it mattered. It wasn't the money. It was proof that someone had believed in me. Someone had trusted me enough to protect my future. Eventually, my mother started sending letters, not asking for money, not asking about the property, just letters, apologies. Some were difficult to read, some were sincere. I didn't forgive them immediately. But I didn't throw the letters away either. A year after my 30th birthday, I invited my parents to the old property. We sat outside on the porch. My mother looked around. "This is beautiful." I nodded. "My grandfather wanted me to have it." She looked down. "I know." For a while, none of us spoke. Then my father said, "We were wrong." I looked at him. Swallowed. "We thought losing the inheritance would hurt you." "It did. We thought you'd come back." "I almost did." Mother looked at me. "Why didn't you?" I took a breath. "When someone tells you you're no longer their child, you have to believe them." Mother started crying. "But we're trying to change." I nodded. "Then change." She looked surprised. "You don't have to prove it with money. You don't have to give me anything." I paused. "Just don't make love conditional anymore." Father nodded, and that was the beginning of something new, not the family relationship we had before, something different, something more honest. I never changed my own will because of what they had done. Instead, I wrote one sentence in my documents. "My inheritance is not a measure of who deserves my love." On my 30th birthday, my parents thought removing me from their will would make me powerless. They were wrong. They didn't take my future away. They simply showed me that my future had to belong to me. And sometimes, the most painful moment in your life isn't the moment someone walks away. It's the moment you realize you no longer need them to stay.